Hello and welcome into another episode of Locked On Wolves. This is the post-game podcast. Today on the pod, we talk all about the Timberwolves' 30-point win over the Thunder. That's three 30-plus point wins in the last four games if you're scoring at home, and six straight wins for the Wolves. We're going to break it all down, how the Wolves won another game very easily. Malik Beasley, or I guess now as we have to call him Malik Threesley's fantastic performance. I want to talk about a couple of key interesting notes here about the Timberwolves' three-point barrage and Malik Beasley, and also Karl-Anthony Towns specifically. It's all upcoming here on the show. Welcome in. You are Locked On Wolves.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Wolves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Ben Beecken. I'm the host of Locked On Wolves. I'm also the editor of Dunking with Wolves, the Timberwolves site on the Fansided Network. Happy Thursday, everybody. It's a victory Thursday as the Timberwolves beat the Thunder on Wednesday night by 30. We're going to break all that down here on the show today. First of all, though, thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. Of course, Locked On Wolves is free and available everywhere. That includes YouTube, as well as all of your favorite audio platforms, Apple, Google, Spotify, Odyssey, anywhere you like to listen to podcasts, you can find Locked On Wolves. You can also follow on Twitter at Locked On T Wolves and at Beecken with two B's, two E's, CKEN. All right. So the Timberwolves beat the Thunder by 30 on Wednesday night. That is the sixth consecutive win for the Timberwolves. Three out of the last four wins have all come by 30 or more points. And I mean, they're 7-1, I think now, or 8-1 since the All-Star break. Things are officially going really well for the Wolves, really for the last month, 3 to 4 weeks, going back to before the All-Star break. And it's hard for them. It would be hard to see them going any better, quite frankly. Outside of the blowout loss to Philly and it lost to the Raptors a couple weeks ago. I mean, this is like we could sit here and talk about how this is the best Timberwolves team pretty clearly since the Western Conference Finals team in 2004. I don't know that there's really a discussion to be had. Obviously, Jimmy Butler, you could say Butler and Towns in the Butler Towns year of 2017-18 as a tandem were better than the two best players in the current Wolves team. I think that would be fair, but with the Butler injury and the lack of depth throughout the rest of that roster, this is the better, call it 1 through 10 depth or even 1 through 12 depth. And they're, the top three players in Towns, Russell, and Edwards are better than the top three on the 17-18 Timberwolves team. That's probably a discussion for I could spend a whole podcast comparing those rosters and comparing those teams. We'll save that for another day, but just know that the Timberwolves are playing, and obviously this says a lot about the Timberwolves over the past decade and a half, almost 2 decades. But still, it's notable that the Wolves are playing as well as they are. And real quickly, before I get into my key takeaway for the game, this is if you haven't seen the stat yet, this is insane. This is the Timberwolves' first 6-game winning streak since 2004. 18 years ago was the last time the Timberwolves have won 6 games in a row as a franchise, which is just mind-boggling. And as somebody who's watched probably 95% of Timberwolves games over this span, over the last 18 years, if not more, I mean, that's still surprising. Like, you can't tell me that, like, I don't know. Remember before Al Jefferson tore his ACL, the Timberwolves won a few games in a row. It was probably only 3 or 4. I don't know. In my mind's eye, it was more than that. Evidently, it wasn't. You can't tell me Kevin Love, Ricky Rubio, Timberwolves, even before Rubio tore his ACL, or after Love came back from the knuckle push-ups, that team never won 6 in a row. I guess not. The Butler teams never won 6 in a row. Here we are. First time in 18 years that this franchise has won 6 games in a row. Let's get to the Thunder game specifically here, though, from Wednesday night, as, of course, this is the post-game podcast. I'm going to start with my overall kind of overarching key takeaway. Holy three-point barrage. Just leave it at that. Timberwolves shot 52 three-pointers in this game against the Oklahoma City Thunder on Wednesday night. The Wolves, of course, shoot more threes per game than any team in the NBA. It's been that way basically all season. It's just over, I think it's 42, 43s per game. They launched 52 in this game, and they made 42.3% of them, 22 of 52 from outside the arc. for the Wolves. And the Thunder shot 43 themselves. They also shoot a ton of threes, but they also only made 32% compared to the Wolves 42%. So the Wolves were a +8 in the made threes department, a +10 in the era, +9 in the 3-point attempts department. So the craziest thing to me about this is of the 52, Malik Beasley shot 17 of them. So, I mean, I don't know, like a third of their 3-point attempts were Malik Beasley, almost exactly a third of their 3-point attempts were Malik Beasley. And of the 52, 0 of them were Karl-Anthony Towns. 52 3-pointers, 17 from Malik Beasley, about a third of them, 0 from Karl-Anthony Towns, which is just incredible. Otherwise, the only other 2 players who played in the game that did not attempt a three, and by the way, the Wolves played 12 guys because there was plenty of garbage time. Nathan Knight and Jake Layman were the only 2 players that saw the floor that did not attempt a three-pointer in this game, besides Karl-Anthony Towns, who played 29 minutes, which was tied for the second highest minute total on the Wolves. Just remarkable. And I've been talking about this all season on this podcast, all season. If you're a loyal listener, you've heard me talk about this. Progression to the mean was needed eventually. We're finally getting it. We are finally starting to see progression to the mean for this Timberwolves team in terms of 3-point shooting. I have harped on this all season. Forgive me if you're a loyal listener that has heard me rant about this. But how many guys on this team have been shooting far below their career averages from outside the arc, and eventually it was going to catch up? Malik Beasley and Patrick Beverley are the most obvious examples. D'Angelo Russell falls into that category as well. These guys are all shooting much better from three. Taurean Prince in November, December was awful. He was like 30% from three, 29%. Now he's up around his career average again. These guys were all shooting just insanely low numbers based on what we knew they could do. Towns was really the only constant. And Edwards has improved a little bit from deep this year. But besides that, all these other guys, I was talking before the year about, man, everybody in the rotation except for Vanderbilt, who's not going to shoot threes, and Jaden McDaniels and Naz Reid, who are going to probably be right around league average and maybe a little bit worse. But everybody else, Malik Beasley, D'Angelo Russell, Patrick Beverley, Taurean Prince, these guys are all going to be plus 3-point shooters. And then none of them were 6, 8, 10 weeks into the season. Now they're all inching back towards there. D'Lo's volume is still really high. The percentage isn't quite where it probably could be. Beasley's has been steadily climbing. Prince's has been up there now for the last 2 months, and Beverley's has also been steadily climbing. So progression to the mean, indeed. We're finally starting to see it. And Chris Finch had a quote following the game, pretty similar, basically comparing 3-point shooting to blackjack. Eventually, when the hand comes back around, effectively, he's saying the more threes you shoot, they're eventually going to fall. And that's true, especially if you have good 3-point shooters. A team like the Thunder, not necessarily the case, but there's a track record for all these guys on the Timberwolves roster to be successful 3-point shooters at the NBA level. Eventually, they were going to start making them. Karl-Anthony Towns, one quick note. Well, actually, I'll do the cat note next. It's related to the 3-pointers. So we'll do that here in a minute. I have a couple more key takeaways before we get to individual studs and duds here from this game. First of all, let's talk about our new friends over at Athletic Greens. Our next partner has a product that I am now starting to use literally every single day. I'm going to start taking Athletic Greens. I just started actually this week because I don't know. I want to be healthier. Don't have that much time. I want better gut health. I want to have more energy. For all these reasons, really, Athletic Greens is the perfect product for me. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of Athletic Greens, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Really, all the things. It's lifestyle friendly. So if you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, it's friendly for all those different lifestyles. Contains less than a gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything, while still tasting good. It helps support better sleep quality and recovery, supports mental clarity and alertness. It's the one thing with the best things. Athletic Greens uses the best of the best products based on the latest science with constant product iterations and third-party testings. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than, your cold brew habit. It's cheaper than getting all the different supplements yourself. You're investing in an all-in-one nutritional insurance. Athletic Greens was created when the founder experienced a ton of gut health issues and ended up on a complicated supplement routine to recover. It costs $100 a day. So he created Athletic Greens after experiencing how difficult it was to create an optimal nutrition routine on your own. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season, or I guess in the midst of it, really. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1 year supply of immune supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NBA network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/NBA network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Let's also talk about our friends over at BetOnline. It's that time of year again. College basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting, my favorite, and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Thanks again for making Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. A reminder that for your next listen, you can check out the Locked On Now podcast. It has nightly recaps of every NBA game with analysis from our local experts. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. The best way to get caught up in all the night's NBA action. You don't need to watch the highlight shows or whatever it is you do otherwise. Get the local news, the local update on every team from the expert that covers the team with the Locked On Now podcast. All right. Couple additional takeaways from this game. I want to continue the 3-point note here from the last segment. This was the first game all season long that Karl-Anthony Towns played in which he did not attempt a 3-pointer. He's missed a handful of games, 7 games total, I guess, and has shot 1-3, exactly 1-3 in 2 games. The win over Indiana right before the All-Star break, and then the win against Portland just the other night, the 43-point win, which was, Monday? No, wait, what's today? This game was Wednesday. So yeah, Monday's game. So over the last 2 games, Towns has shot a combined 1 3-pointer. He's attempted 0 3-pointers in just 1 game this year. That's this Thunder game. 1 3-pointer in 2 games this year. 2 2-pointers or 2 3-pointers in 2 games. But besides that, he's attempted 3 or more 3-pointers in every other game this season. He has not had a game in which he's attempted double-digit 3-pointers since the win over Charlotte back on February 15th. And before that, it was November. Early November was the last time he had a double-digit 3-point game. So he's seen his 3-point rate decrease as the year's gone on. And of course, his 3-point percentage has held steady. Everybody knows he just won the 3-point contest less than a month ago. So at some point, I got to believe that Towns gets back into shooting more threes. And it's funny because he's playing on the perimeter now more than ever. The Timberwolves are by design giving him the ball in face-up situations so he can take, opposing defenders off the dribble. And it's working. So, why try and fix what's not broken? I think part of it is because the Wolves are doing that consciously. He's less often the trailer coming down the court in situations where it's like, hey, I'm not going to be out on the perimeter unless I'm the trailer, so I'm just going to jack up this 3. I think in Towns' mind, he keeps thinking, I could beat this guy off the dribble, and I know I'm going to get the ball every time down the court in this, essentially this new offense that we're running, or this new version of Chris Finch's offense, where he's just more getting the ball in the perimeter than anywhere else. So he doesn't feel like he has to shoot the 3 when he gets it outside, and that he'll have another opportunity to do it later. And I think it's worked well. He's obviously still shooting the three ball well when he gets the opportunity. So he shot 1 the other day. I guess he was 0 for 4 the game before that against Portland. And the last time he made multiple threes in a game was March 1st against Golden State. So 10 days ago or 9 days ago, I guess. So look for that 3-point frequency to ratchet up just a little bit here soon. It has to at some point. He's too good of a 3-point shooter. But once he really starts to kind of, add that in to what he's already doing off the dribble primarily, because he's not really playing in the post much anymore. He did a little bit in this game, actually, against Oklahoma City early. He got the ball actually in the mid post a couple of times. We haven't seen as much of that lately. And the Thunder were trying to double team him. And Towns mostly made them pay, although he also committed 5 turnovers in this game. You could tell he was a little bit rusty when it came to actually passing out of the post and dealing and dealing with double teams, which he hasn't had to do as much recently, which leads me to my next point, and that's the sloppy offense for Minnesota. By and large, I'm nitpicking now, right? They scored 132 points. They shot 42% from three. But the 14 turnovers, like 10 of them were in the first half. Karl-Anthony Towns committed 5 of them. And of the 14 turnovers, Towns and Edwards combined for 9 of the 14. So, I mean, it was a little sloppy. There was a stretch I think it was second quarter. Second quarter where it was really sloppy. There was a bad D'Lo turnover. There were like Towns traveled, and then Towns was pickpocketed essentially or stripped of the basketball. Just a really messy kind of stretch there the second quarter. Throw that out though, and it wasn't all that bad. I'm absolutely nitpicking. I get that they won by 30, but that worked out great against Oklahoma City and against Portland and Oklahoma City going back to the last 4 games, which have been against those same 2 teams. Might work against Orlando on Friday night. It certainly should. Whatever they've been doing should work just fine. But against Miami on Saturday, that's not going to work. You're going to have to tighten that up. Look ahead to some of the teams they play in the next couple weeks. You got to clean it up. I mean, it's if this is how the Wolves play offense in those games, they're not going to score 110, much less 130. My last key takeaway is, again, coming back to the Timberwolves depth. The depth is allowing for rest. I didn't even mention this off the top, setting this thing up because this was such a blowout. But coming into this game, Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, neither of them played Monday. They were both listed as questionable. Jalen Noel was probable after missing the second half of Monday's game with the nasal contusion. But Patrick Beverley, who played Monday, was questionable. Jared Vanderbilt, who played Monday, was questionable. And I guessed on Wednesday's podcast, previewing the game, I thought there was a pretty good chance Edwards and Russell play. And it wouldn't surprise me if at least one of Beverley or Vanderbilt sat. And sure enough, we've essentially the Wolves traded out 2 starters for 2 guys that were out. So Beverley and Vanderbilt sat out. Russell and Edwards returned after missing Monday. So the Wolves continue to start Jaden McDaniels and Malik Beasley in the absence of 2 starters, with Karl-Anthony Towns being the only regular starter that's been a constant this week. I mean, the depth is allowing the Wolves to do that. I mean, and Malik Beasley proves the point here. He plays 30 minutes, scores 33 points on 17 shots, all 17 shots, 3-pointers, grabs 5 rebounds as a game high, plus 31. Just fantastic. Jalen Noel off the bench, also really good. The line isn't super sexy, 6 points on 6 shots, but 7 assists, 6 rebounds, and 0 turnovers. That'll play. Backing up Malik Beasley, essentially. Taurean Prince, 17 points in 23 minutes on 10 shots off the bench for the Timberwolves. The depth that the Wolves have is so vital to what they're doing and allowing them to steal these rest nights for over the past week. Edwards sitting out 4 games. D'Lo sat out a game last week. He sat out another one on Monday. Patrick Beverley sat out Saturday. He sat out again Wednesday. To steal these rest games when the Wolves are confident enough in their depth to know that they can win without all their pieces on the floor is huge. That's going to pay dividends over this stretch, this tough stretch in the next couple of weeks. And then ultimately, as we get into, late April and May and hopefully into May in the playoffs as well. So the Wolves depth, phenomenal. Okay, let's close the show by talking individual studs and duds. And that means we'll talk Malik Beasley. That's all upcoming here next. First, though, let's talk about our friends over at Rock Auto. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the ever-increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need. Why endure often pointless or seemingly intimidating questioning and wait while the person behind the counter orders the parts on their computer, choosing the only brand their warehouse happens to carry? You have computers with access to rockauto.com, both at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when using Rock Auto. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or car dealership? Rock Auto is a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low for every single customer, and they have everything you could need, from brake parts to tail lamps, motor oil to even new carpet. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution to your auto part needs. Go to rockauto.com right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck, right locked on in their How Did You Hear About Us box, so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, let's close this thing out by talking individual studs and duds from Wolves Thunder. Number one, obviously, Malik Beasley, 33 points on 11 of 17 shooting. I should have said this off the top. I mentioned the Timberwolves 6-game win streak. I didn't mention that the 11 3-pointers for Malik Beasley is a team record for three-pointers in a game. Of course, Anthony Edwards set that earlier this year. But Malik, 11 of 17, he hit 6 of them in the first quarter alone. 3 of them were in like the last 90 seconds in the first quarter. But hit that last one off the dribble to break the record. Of course, everybody went nuts. Finch had the great quote after the game about it being like Mardi Gras at the end of his bench. Sometimes the crowd going nuts, the Wolves bench getting a technical because they were on the court pouring water and Gatorade on Beasley during free throws for the Thunder. It just a great vibe around the Timberwolves team, obviously, and a great game from Malik Beasley. I mean, Malik struggled so much earlier this year with his shot, and there was a lot of theories about him not being 100%, the best shape based on what his off season looked like last summer, which is fair. And it just kind of never came around. And then we started to see some hopeful signs when he was in the starting lineup, when guys were out with health and safety protocols in December. He went back to the bench. He struggled, or excuse me, he saw his minutes reduced, struggled a little bit into January, and then he picked back up. And now basically since mid-January, Malik has been fantastic for the most part. There's been some peaks and valleys, but for the most part, more peaks at this point. And the Wolves will take, obviously, 33 points and 5 rebounds in 30 minutes from Malik Beasley 10 times out of 10. Fantastic game. And he's back to his, no hesitation. The hair trigger release that he's got on his shot is so amazing. And very effective in transition, very effective when Towns is slinging passes cross court from the post. And if this is anything close to this is the Malik Beasley that we get here down the stretch of the season, then the Wolves offense will truly be unstoppable. Second stud for me in this game, Taurean Prince off the bench, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 5 of 10 shooting, 2 of 5 on threes. He got to the free throw line 8 times, led the Wolves in free throw attempts, and just a really solid all-around game. Early in the game when the Wolves, they weren't ever really struggling. This thing was never in doubt, but early, I guess it was like late first, early second quarter when the deficit was kind of hanging around, or I should say the lead for the Wolves was hanging right around 9-10 points. Taurean had a really strong stretch then, and he closed this game strong. Well, not closed the game because it was all garbage time, but third quarter was very good for him too. Even as the Thunder kind of hung around a little bit, actually won the third quarter, and it was a 30-point game, got back down to 20. Taurean Prince was a constant for the Wolves bench, and had another strong game. Third stud for me is Karl-Anthony Towns. You're not going to find an easier 13 and 11 in just 29 minutes for Karl-Anthony Towns. He only attempted 5 shots in this game. He got fouled a bunch. I think he had 2 and 1s and then a couple of separate trips to the free throw line. 13 points on 5 shots with no 3-point attempts for Karl-Anthony Towns. 5 of 6 at the free throw line, 4 of 5 from the field, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks. He did have 5 turnovers, and I mentioned this earlier. He looked, frankly, a little rusty passing out of the post, had the ball stripped away from him a couple of different times. He did complete one of his fancy, unnecessary kind of behind the head, over the shoulder passes. That was a hockey assist. He kicked it to the corner, and then one more pass. I think Jade McDaniels or somebody hit a 3. But a good game for Towns. I mean, 13-11, 4 and 3. You can deal with the 5 turnovers. Generally a strong game for Karl-Anthony Towns. I want to point out Anthony Edwards. He, of course, hadn't played in 4 games. I haven't talked about him much yet. Clearly, also, he was also rusty. 16 points on 15 shots, but hit a couple of 3-pointers as the game went on. He had a couple of really nice dunks, 2 really good steals, both against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So defensively, he looked spry. He looked athletic. He always looks athletic, but he looked well rested at the open floor. It's just the jumper is still a little clunky. And we saw some signs of that early, right before he went out with the knee injury. So hopefully this is now, instead of the knee bothering him, it's just a matter of a little bit of rust. He's got to shake that off. He said after the game he wanted to try and shake it off against the Thunder. Hopefully he plays Friday against Orlando and then can still play Saturday against Miami. But ultimately, 16 points, 7 of 15 shooting, 2 of 8 on threes, no free throw attempts for Ant. 3 assists, 2 steals, a rebound, a block. He did have 4 turnovers. So not a stud or a dud, but a notable performance from Ant in his return from missing the last 4 games due to injury. I don't think I can really hand out a dud for this game. Frankly, I mean, nobody played poorly for the Wolves. Everyone played well. Everyone that played scored, except for Leandro Bolmaro, who played the last 5 minutes of the game. And I'm not going to give poor Leo a dud. I don't think he needs that. Nobody else on the team, though, scored less than 3 points. Everybody shot the ball fairly well. I already talked about the turnover issues for Ant and Cat. I don't think there's a dud. You win by 30, you win 6 in a row. You play essentially a quarter of garbage time. It's very hard to pinpoint anyone that had a poor performance individually. So now the Wolves have won 6 straight. They get Thursday off. They head back out on the road after this 3-game homestand. They take on Orlando on the road Friday night. And then on Saturday, they're in Miami. It's the old Florida two-step that the Wolves often struggle with historically. Now, those types of statistics drive me crazy because how many of these guys have been on those past teams? Not many. So I don't want to harp on that too much. However, something we will talk about on Friday's show is the fact that the last time the Wolves and Magic played, which is very early this season in Minnesota, the Wolves were 3-2 coming into the game, and they got beat by 18 points by the Orlando Magic in that game. Orlando was 1-6 heading into that game and absolutely waxed the Wolves by 18. Now, sitting here today, Orlando's 17-50. So since that point, these teams have gone in completely opposite directions. We'll break down the matchup. We'll talk about what happened that first time around on Friday's show. And then beyond that, the schedule gets a lot tougher. We'll talk about that Friday as well. Thanks once again for listening to Locked On Wolves. Of course, Locked On Wolves is free and available everywhere, including YouTube. You can also listen on Apple, Google, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And thank you for making Locked On Wolves your first listen each and every day. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Locked On T Wolves or my account, which is at Beecken with 2 B's, 2 E's, CKEN. Thanks again for listening to Locked On Wolves. Of course, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Remember, the Locked On Network is your local experts on all the biggest stories. As long as you're making Locked On Wolves your first listen, please make your second listen Locked On NBA. Locked On experts covering the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Once again, I'm Ben Beecken. This is the Locked On Wolves podcast, and we'll catch you next time.